What is up YouTube, Synchron here, coming at you with a deck profile. This deck I will be running in the upcoming March format. It is Macro Monarch, and the reason why I'm going to run it is because it does so much against stuff like Mermails, Fire Kings, because a lot of their stuff needs to hit the grave, their effects need to hit the grave to be able to activate. And this just takes that away from them, so therefore they can't, like Runics can't regenerate and Mermails just can't go off as quickly as they normally would. So let's get into the deck profile. I run 3 Caius the Shadow Monarch. It's the best Monarch in my opinion. It allows you to banish one monster on field, well, one card on field. It doesn't have to be a monster. So it's really good if your opponent has no monsters on field, one back row, you think that back row is going to affect your attack, just pop it with Caius, and it's just a really nice card to have. The next card is Rise of the Shadow, Storm Monarch, sorry. It's a good card, and it allows your opponent to, not allows them, it stalls your opponent so they can't do the play they wanted to do. They've got to do it next turn. Or it just makes them draw into the card that they don't want to draw into. They already know what it is, basically. Then I run 2 Mobius with Frost Monarch. It's basically MST on steroids. It allows you to target 2 spell or trap cards on the field and destroy those 2 targets. So again, if your opponent has back row that you don't like the look of, you can just get rid of it and then attack through their monster or attack for game or whatever the scenario is. Then onto the main engine of the deck, and it's 3 DD Survivor and 3 DD Scout Plane. These 2 cards come back during the end phase when they're banished. With DD Survivor, it has to be on the field prior to it being banished to be able to come back during the end phase, whereas DD Scout Plane can go from deck to banish zone and then be able to come back during the end phase, which is really nice with a couple of other cards I run in the deck. These 2 cards are the main source for your Monarch tributes, just because they keep coming back during the end phase, so next turn hopefully they're on board for you to tribute. And also when your opponent attacks them, they can come back during the end phase of the opponent's turn, so therefore they're on board for you next turn, so you can tribute for Caius, Riser or Mobius. So they're really nice cards to have in the deck. They're the engine of the deck. If you didn't run these 2 particular cards, then you wouldn't be able to do as much as you would be able to when you run them. Then I run 2 Cyber Valleys. It's a really nice card, again in conjunction with DD Survivor and DD Scout Plane. Just allows me to draw 2 extra cards when I have 2 cards on field, and then obviously with DD Survivor and Scout Plane they come back during the end phase, so I have some kind of defense against my opponent's attack. And also it allows you to be able to sit behind it as well, so you can then go off next turn and your opponent doesn't really want to attack into Cyber Valley, because you're allowed to draw a card obviously by banishing Cyber Valley when it's attacked. So it's a nice card to sit behind because your opponent's a bit wary of what to do. Then I run 2 DD Warrior Lady and 2 DD Assailant. These 2 cards are basically the beat sticks of the deck. They just get rid of monsters that your opponent has on board, regardless of whether they can attack over them or not. Just attack into them, take the damage if need be, and then banish both DD Warrior Lady, DD Assailant, plus whatever they're attacking. So they're really nice cards to have in a deck, just to get rid of things that you don't like the look of on board. Then I run 2 Dimensional Alchemists. These cards work really well with DD Scout Plane, because if you've got DD Scout Plane on the top of your deck, obviously you wouldn't know this, but if you reveal a DD Scout Plane when Dimensional Alchemist, you activate its effect, and it goes to the banish zone. Obviously, as I said earlier, DD Scout Plane will come back during the end phase, so then you've got Dimensional Alchemist and DD Scout Plane on board, so your opponent has to attack over 2 monsters instead of just the 1, which is really nice. And obviously the Dimensional Alchemist will then gain 500 attack, which makes it 1800 beta, which can run over quite a few things. It can't run over Thunder King, but it can run over a lot of other smaller monsters that your opponent may try and use to stall you out and try and get their plays off. So it's a really nice card to have in the deck, and obviously you can side it out for Thunder Kings if you don't see them, etc, etc, but I'll go into the side deck later on. Then I run 2 Banisher the Radiance. Banisher is basically another Dimensional Fish from Macro Cosmos in a monster form. Just play Banisher, play Banisher, and then obviously your opponent's monsters, spells, traps get banished instead of going to the graveyard. So it's another nice card to bring onto board, attack over whatever monster they seem to have, obviously if it can get over it, and then banish it so they can't monster reborn it, which is really nice. And then I tech in one Chaos Sorcerer. This can be dead, can be live, it depends on the situation, like most things. If you have a Dimensional Fissure or Macro Cosmos on board, Chaos Sorcerer is basically just fodder for your Allure of Darkness when you draw into it, if you haven't already used it. And if they're not on board, then you can just drop it by removing them from play, obviously a light and a dark monster, which you've got plenty of in this deck. And it's just another boss monster for the deck and something else for your opponent to worry about. However, I do side it out quite a lot because I don't see it much when I need it. And I've already used my Allure on something like DD Survivor or DD Scout Plane, whilst Dimensional Fissure and Macro are on board. So it's a card that I'm a bit like, should I keep it? But I am going to keep it just in case the situation arises when I go to regionals. I think it'll be next month and the month after. I'm just going to keep it in just in case a situation arises where I actually need to use it. Then I run obviously 3-Dimensional Fissure, one of the main cards in the deck. It just basically shits upon quite a few decks. To put a few examples out there, Fire Kings and Mermils just do not like Dimensional Fissure. Fire Kings, Garunix, Barong and Kieran need to hit the grave for their effects to activate. Same with a lot of Mermil and Atlantean cards as well, so it just allows you to stop the effects from going off of those two decks, and quite a few other decks obviously. I can't really think of many, but the only thing that this doesn't really affect is Macro Rabbit, but you can't do much about that. 2 Mystical Space Typhoon, sorry, it's another card obviously along with Mobius, that's just to get rid of back row and just to get rid of things you don't like the look of. Then I run 2 Gold Sarcophagus. I side deck the third. I'm kind of thinking of putting the third one into the main deck, but Gold Sarc basically allows you to get Macro Cosmos and Dimensional Fissure earlier on than you would do, so it's a really nice card just to get your plays going and just to start basically revolving around banishing stuff from the field instead of having them in the graveyard so your opponent can reborn them. 1 Allure of Darkness, there's a lot of targets for Allure in this deck, but most of the time I like to use it with DD Scout Plane and Chaos Sorcerer, as I mentioned earlier. DD Scout Plane, basically because it comes back during the end phase, as I explained earlier. Chaos Sorcerer again, because it might be dead in your hand and you might want to get rid of it, instead of playing it through Dimensional Fissure and Macro, because there's nothing engraved for you to be able to banish for it to be able to summon. Then I play 1 Dark Hole. This card is really, really nice, especially if you have DD Survivor, DD Scout Plane on board, and you don't have Monarchs and your opponent has a field of absolute bomb and they're going to go off next turn. Just activate Dark Hole whilst Dimensional Fissure or Macro's on board, and then it just really, really helps with the deck so much, because it just clears the field, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. It just clears the field for you, so you're able to actually do something against your opponent. Then I run 1 Rotor, because obviously Rotor's the main searcher card for the deck, so obviously it gets you your survivors, DD Warrior Ladies and Assailants quicker than you would want them, quicker than you would normally get them, sorry. So therefore you can just go off quicker, get your plays running. The main card of the deck, obviously Macro Cosmos, does exactly the same as Dimensional Fissure, so it's a really nice card. I run 2 Bottomless Trap Holes just to get rid of monsters that I don't like the look of, or don't want to run into later on in the game. And then 2 Dimensional Prisons just to protect the stuff like DD Scout Planes when it's summoned, because obviously it's special summoned in attack mode. It's only got 800 attack, so it just allows you to protect that kind of stuff. And it also just basically doesn't allow your opponent to attack over monsters you don't want them to attack over. So that's the main deck. That's a 41 card deck. There's not really much I'd change about it, but if you guys have any suggestions or constructive criticism, just put it in the comments below and I will get round to reading them at some point and respond to what you're saying. So now to move on to the side deck, I play 1 Chimeratech Fortress Dragon and 2 Cyber Dragons, solely because the amount of gears, gadgets and machina decks I've seen a few locals has been rising, so I just want an out, like something to be able to put in against those kind of decks to make sure I don't get beaten by them. I run 2 Effect Veilers because I personally think that these cards are going to be absolutely amazing next format. In the March format, it's just going to shut down so many decks and not allow them to do the kind of stuff they normally do. Then I run double max C. Again, it just allows you to draw into cards against the likes of Mermails and Fire Kings and anything that special summons, basically, solely because max C, obviously you can drop it and then draw cards. You can draw cards every time your opponent special summons. That's what I was trying to get at. And then I run 2 Thunder King Ryos. It's just basically a stall aspect for the deck. If I'm against something that's a bit quicker than this deck, i.e. Mermails, then I'll just be able to drop Thunder King and just hope that they don't go off, and hope I don't have to burn the Thunder King before I get a Monarch out on board. Then I side deck the 3rd MST and the 3rd Gold Sark. These normally go in for Allure and Dark Hole depending on the situation that I'm in and what decks I'm facing. I run 2 different dimensional reincarnations. Again, it just allows me to get cards from the it allows me to get cards from the banished area, bring it back onto board. So the stuff like I normally bring back stuff like DD Warrior Lady, DD Assailant, Banisher, something like that, because there's no point me bringing back DD Survivor because it just brings itself back. Same with Scout Plane. Occasionally I have brought back Monarchs, but most of the time once your Monarchs are burnt, you're still going to be drawing into extra Monarchs and extra cards that allow you to like work around the Monarchs. So DDR is mainly for DD Warrior Lady and DD Assailant, stuff like that, but I occasionally go for the bigger monsters if need be. And then the last card I run in my side deck is 2 Goes and Match, just for the odd wind-ups that are still running around, because obviously they've now got Warrior and Soldier and Summon a Monk to go off, so I've got them just in case I run into wind-ups. There's not many decks, not many people, sorry, that are running wind-ups nowadays. Well, coming up to March format, but I still see them being a big top deck, so that's why they're there. Then my extra deck, I run 2 Photon Strike Bouncer. When I do side in Chimera Tech, this is one card that I take out as Strike Bouncer, because I don't normally go into it that much, but it's just in case I summon out 2 Monarchs at the same time. I've used up the Monarchs effects and I'm like, right, okay, what can I do now? Oh, okay, I'll go into Strike Bouncer, so that's why that's there. Same with Constellar, I can't pronounce it, but this Constellar card, it's not out in the TGC yet, but when it comes out, it's going to be one of the main cards in this extra deck. It's so good in this deck, it's unbelievable. Then I run 1 Abyss Dweller, basically for the Mermail matchup, not much else to say about that. I run Blade Armor Ninja because a lot of the level 4 cards that are in this deck are warriors, so it's pretty easy to get out, and it's going to be a 2200 beta once it's come out. 1 Go Cowboy, pretty much a staple card in extra decks nowadays. I run 2 Maystroke because it's one of the best generic rank 4s in the game at the moment. I run 1 Excalibur, same reason as Blade Armor Ninja. It's just easy to bring out and easy to use its effect. Utopia, pretty much a staple. Utopia Ray, I use this because obviously you've got light monsters, so I can use three level 4 light monsters in the fact of Dimensional Alchemist and Warrior Ladies and stuff like that, so it's a really nice card just to have in the deck. And obviously when I have Utopia, I can go into Utopia Array pretty quickly. Steel Storm Roach for the Chaos Dragons that are running around. The Sigma's just in there as a fill card at the moment. I'm not too sure what I'd put in instead of it, but it's a nice card every now and again to put in. And then I run Daigusto Phoenix and Gachi Gachi for the DD Scout Planes in case I have like two or three on board that I can just use these 2. So it's a really standard extra deck, really. Not much to say about it, but the deck itself I think is going to be pretty good this next format. If you agree, please give this video a like, please subscribe for more content, guys. If you have any constructive criticism or feedback about the video itself or even the deck itself, just leave it in the comments below and I'll get around to reading them and reply to your comments as soon as I possibly can. This has been Synchron, guys. As I said, please subscribe and like the video, and I shall see you in my next video.